Hi guys, in this video I will talk about SQL course description. So before that, let's introduce myself. My name is Ibrahim. I'm a machine learning researcher and I have a long experience in data science. So the courses that I can provide my students is Python beginner to advanced, also Python for data science, and since I have a long experience in SQL Server, so I can give my students a course related to SQL language, also a Delphi programming language, and last but not least, I can even give my students courses for machine learning and deep learning stuff. Now, let's go and talk about SQL course description. First of all, I will talk about introduction to database concepts, and then the second part is data definition language. After that, we'll explain query language, and we will talk long time in a topic called stored procedure, and finally the advanced database features. Now let's go for each part in detail. So the first part, as I mentioned, is introduction to database concepts. The student should know by the end of this part what database systems means, the definition of relation database systems, and also the student should know how to install different versions of SQL Server and how can deal with SQL Server Management Studio to create tables and do whatever you want in your database. The next part is data definition language. So in this part, the students will know what SQL components and how to create database and tables, and also how to update or modify the tables and also remove tables, just as introduction. In this part, it's the core of SQL Server. So in query language part, I will talk about select statements. Lots of examples should be give to the students to retrieve data and using different built-in functions and this select statements. Also, I will go deep and talk about subquery and how to save your data in temporary tables, and also using join operator in our SQL statement. Okay, this part, as I mentioned, it takes a long time, but it's quite worthy. So in this part, we will go through how to create stored procedure, how to use local variables and also control statements, and loops. Also, how can we deal with exception handlings such as try command. The last part here is advanced database features. So the topics that will be covered in this part is triggers, ranking functions, such as row number, and also I will talk about common table expressions, CTE, and finally the backup and restore your database. Okay, in this slide I will talk about an example about window construct. So I will just provide you an example. So this is, as you can see, select statements. It's just to retrieve some data from the table called sales order, details from the database, the common database adventure works. So as you can see here, this is just a bunch of fields as I mentioned, and there is here another temporary column. So this column has a formula. The formula started with the summation. So the summation here means we need to just sum up the values of this field, but here we have a command called over, partition by protect ID and order. So those are two columns. So when I mention about partition, that means the summation not to all the records values. The summation should be grouped by those columns. Let's take these values to explain more about this select statement. So if you look to the first two rows, the two columns protect ID and order quantity has the same values. Here for this field, the same values even for the rest of the columns, the rest of the rows, sorry, but for order quantity just the first two rows has the same. So this is called here group. So when I use partition by, that means we need to just group the summation of line total based on those columns. So as you can see here, the summation for those rows is this value. So this value should be saved in this column for two rows. The same here for the second two rows. So here protect ID has the same values for two rows and even order quantity. So here the summation or the total here is just based on the two values of the third record and the fourth record, and so on for the rest. This one has just one, as you can see here, one value for order quantity, so the summation should be the same value. Now let's go to the last one. So the last one here is the same, there is no difference, but just three rows here, and this value is a summation of the three values for three rows based on this condition, or as I mentioned, grouped by the two fields. Thank you so much for watching.